Well, arriving at our last petrol stop before heading into the unknown, we decided to have ourselves a well-earned break. I mean, the tension of the last few days seemed to somehow kind of out here in the more remote areas kind of dissipate, and we felt a lot more comfortable. So we thought, let's just have a good break, let's just wind down a little bit here now. There were just a few locals and the pace was pretty laid back, and there was certainly no rush to do anything or go anywhere. I mean, where could you go? You know, it's really interesting, the mixture of people we've encountered so far since we left New Zealand. One day you meet nice people, the next day not so nice people. Everywhere we've been, from Australia to Singapore to England and Europe and now North Africa, it's such a huge smorgasbord of people. And here we are now amongst the northern Sahara Tuareg people, and the whole vibe is so different once again. Nice people, peaceful, courteous, warm. I mean, it's just been an amazing experience for us. However, I could understand why some smarty pants decided to put petrol pumps way out here. Because when we decided to fill up, man, it was going to cost us $1 for 1 litre of fuel. $1 for 1 litre of petrol, my goodness. This is 1972, remember. I thought, somebody's making some serious money here, man. $1 for 1 litre of petrol, oh my goodness. I think it was about 50 cents a gallon when we left England. So 400 litres of fuel would be around about $400. That's going to leave us with about $700 to get to Cape Town. Oh man, this is going to be real touch and go. Oh my goodness. Apparently the idea of taking 400 litres of fuel was not just so that you could get across the Sahara safely, but when you got to the other end, you had a little bit of reserve left so that you could travel a little bit further on and not pay exorbitant prices as you reached the fringe of the Sahara, but you could travel a little bit further on because you had reserve, and it was going to be cost a little bit less, fortunately or hopefully, for the fuel. And so I began to fill the petrol tanks up on the roof of the combi, and when they were all full, I began to fill up the nearly empty vehicle petrol tank. And when I finally finished, I put the petrol hose back into the pump, and I just stood there in amazement. I couldn't quite get my mind to register what I was looking at. I was looking at the petrol gauge on the Bowser, and it said 230 litres. And I'm just staring into space. 230 litres. They told me that these combi petrol tanks were 90 litre fuel tanks. And of course you couldn't go to the internet then and find out how much petrol there was in a combi petrol tank. You had to ask somebody. And they told me, the person that I asked, they're 90 litre petrol tanks. These are not 90 litre petrol tanks, mate. And I was standing there thinking, these are not 90 litre fuel tanks. They're more like 60 litre fuel tanks. And we were advised to take 400 litres of fuel, and now we are 170 litres short of fuel. Bugger! Of course, I'd been filling up with gallons for months in England, but when we got on the road in Europe, it never really registered with me how many litres we're actually putting in the tank. I didn't even think about it. We're 170 litres short of fuel. How are we going to get across Sahara when we don't have the capacity to carry any more fuel? I just sat there trying to figure all this out. We don't have enough petrol to get across Sahara. And of course you couldn't get anything there. There was no containers there where you could put fuel in, way out there in the middle of nowhere. It was just Bowsers, that was it. Petrol Bowsers. So I sat down, sitting there, and I'm looking into space, just shaking my head thinking, you're ridiculous. We don't have enough fuel to get across the Sahara. Then I suddenly realised, actually, we possibly could make it, because They were working on the assumption that we were driving a 70 horsepower vehicle. But ours was not a 70 horsepower vehicle, it's a 25 horsepower vehicle. Way less fuel consumption. Therefore, fuel consumption would be about 1/3 less. That's right, yes. The Combi would be far more economical. Yes, that's right, it would. And about 230 litres would be just about enough to get us there. That was my logic. Oh, just about enough, I'd say. 230 litres, yeah. We would get there on that. Well, anyway, we continued to stock up 100 litres of water and checked all the oil levels and tyre pressures and everything else we could think of, including repairing the roof rack and cleaning up all the stuff that had been flung everywhere on the previous rough road that we'd just been over as well. And so after a very restful and comfortable 2-hour break, oh so nice, we find ourselves ready to head out to our final stop before the Sahara, the border outpost, which was about another 40 kilometres further on. The Combi certainly looked heavy, pretty heavily laden, and was sitting pretty low to the ground, but whatever, let's just get moving, we're going to think about that. And so as we were driving away from that tiny little fuel outpost, which began to get smaller and smaller and smaller in our rear vision mirror, suddenly the immensity of the 10 million square kilometre Sahara Desert comes into focus, suddenly becomes a reality. The immense size of it finally registered with you. As you see this tiny little speck in the mirror getting smaller and smaller and smaller as you're driving away from that petrol post. And nothing but barrenness. Right to the horizon in every direction. Everywhere you look, it's just barrenness. And their insignificance just blows out of proportion, really. You feel like an ant on a leaf in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, if you like. You feel so subdued, so incapable, and at the mercy of this giant, ever-changing terrain. I mean, it's very humbling. You feel very humbled by the environment that's around you. Very humbled. But suddenly you're brought back to reality as the pitch of the motor suddenly changes from a normal hum to a struggling sound, and you realise the track has suddenly become more sandy-like, and you're peering up ahead with great apprehension. Is this track now turning into sand dunes, into sand boggy areas? Oh man, are we going to get bogged? You're intently looking at the surface of the track when suddenly you feel it bite again and everything's back to normal, and you think, oh man, that was a bit worrying. Like, I thought we were going to get bogged in for a minute. 60 seconds later, you hear that awful sound again. And it was going to be like that for the next 30 kilometres until we reached the border post. Oh no, we're going to get bogged. And then suddenly it picks up again. 60 seconds later, bogged down again. It was like that for the next 30 kilometres. The border outpost was nothing more than one little hut and one guy in this hut. We didn't even see a vehicle there, just him and a hut. It was very surreal, very weird. The actual Algerian border was still 1,500 kilometres away, would you believe? And here was this border outpost 1,500 kilometres away from the actual border. And it was pretty strange. Just one guy in this little hut. Anyway, we go into this little hut. There's the guy there. He looks at us, takes our passports, writes something down, then hands us, which we knew what was coming, a Trans-Sahara authorization, which basically gives us authorization to cross the Sahara, and at the same time relinquishes the Algerian government from any responsibility regarding our crossing of the Sahara Desert. And we're also given a time frame to do it as well. 1 month. This authorization is valid for 1 month. The time frame. And anyway, so here's the original. And it says here, this authorization relieves the Algerian authorities from any responsibility connected to Trans-Sahara travel. It's all written in French here, so I kept the original. And so, all the formalities were done, and I was just standing there, looking out the window of the small hut. There was no electricity in there, of course, and it must have been about 40 degrees centigrade inside the hut, about 105 degrees Fahrenheit. But there was a ceiling fan as well, probably a battery-powered ceiling fan, which kind of cooled you down slightly. But seeing the vastness of the Sahara Desert, and I'm looking out that window and feeling the searing 40-degree heat on me, here I am, standing there looking out the window, seeing the vastness and isolation of the Sahara in a 40-degree centigrade room, heat. You just suddenly go onto autopilot. Nothing else you can do. You just suddenly go, right, what is the next move? You suddenly go into autopilot because you can't comprehend it. So you can't comprehend what you're about to do. So you just go into autopilot. What do I do next? It's like you're in a dream. You feel yourself becoming automated, really. You go into this kind of automated mode. That's really the only way you can deal with what you're experiencing. And so we marched out of that hut. Authorization in our hands. Walked over to the combi. And we just stood there in that searing heat, the 40-degree heat. It was probably a lot hotter outside. Thinking, when we drive away from here, there's no turning back. Oh my goodness, we're just standing there thinking about this. Once we drive away from here, that's it. We're on our own. There's no compass. We don't have a compass. We're alone, no convoy, wrong vehicle, possibly short on fuel, and everything ahead of us was totally unknown to us. We've got no idea what we're going into. Okay, we get the picture. We understand what the situation is. And I remember just gazing over at the start of that track that we were about to take. And I looked over and I saw one set of tyre tracks in the sand and a row of rocks. That's all I saw. One set of tyre tracks going into the distance and a row of rocks. I'm thinking, I bet those row of rocks that we see next to the tyre tracks don't go for more than about 10 kilometres. I'm sure they'd only go about 10 kilometres. Somebody has found those rocks and put them in a nice row. That's nice. But there's no way that someone has done that for 1,800 kilometres. 10 kilometres at the most, I thought. So I wonder what's after that. What do we follow after that row of rocks? So we get in the van, start it up, and we slowly began to turn the van around and drive over to that single pair of tyre tracks that we see in the sand. We pull up into those single pair of tyre tracks. It's quiet, we're just looking ahead, hesitating for a moment. I looked over at the border guard, gave him a little wave, and we slowly started to move off into our epic journey, our epic adventure. That was going to be extremely dangerous, challenging as well, but at the same time it's going to be euphoric, absolutely breathtakingly euphoric as well. As we drove off, we had no idea what was ahead of us.